Hey guys, welcome back to the Updownstate podcast. I'm Nicole.
I'm Beth.
I'm Brian.
And for those of you that don't know, it's named that because we lived upstate and now we're downstate. And we're going to talk about some of the jobs we've had over the years, starting with our McFamily. So not only the three of us, we have had multiple family members also that we all worked for McDonald's at one point in our lives.
Yeah.
How long did each of you work for McDonald's? I worked for 6 years.
So 2004.
And only in New York.
Until, I worked here a little bit too when I first moved down here. So 2004 until I started at the bank, which I started in January the year we left. So 2004 to 2011, that's 7 years. And I worked for another basically year, I think, down here. So 8 years.
Which time?
Yeah.
You put them all together.
Put them all together.
Combine them.
Maybe a year and a half.
So, and then our mom was the first one then that got in the McFamily that we knew. So that, and she opened a three-way rest area. So that's another kind of fun McDonald's fact is I've only ever worked at the three-way rest stop McDonald's. I never worked at a regular local McDonald's. So the three-way McDonald's is obviously on the interstate, on the paved toll road. You have to.
Used to be.
Yeah, it's not there anymore. But so that location was only accessible via the New York State Thruway. So a little bit different.
I think I'm the only one. So Mom was at Thompson Road before that.
Yeah.
And she worked for Stan Jeter, and he had her open Warner's. So if you guys know the Warner's rest stop, she opened that back in like
93,
I think. Yeah, right.
I wonder how many years she worked for McDonald's. It was several because...
Well, it was 93 until 2004 because I started right after she left. Because 2004 is when she graduated from nursing school. Well, no, it would have been before 93. So it was probably, what did I say, 2000? So was that 15? I want to say she was there for 15 years.
That sounds right. It was a long time because it was until she became a nurse. She worked at McDonald's up through nursing school. So, and that was the majority of our childhood. She worked for McDonald's. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I always vividly remember about Mom working for McDonald's is Christmas mornings. Do you guys remember Christmas mornings when Mom worked for McDonald's?
Yeah, we always had to wait.
We would always wake up so early, and Mom always worked
6 to 10.
6 to 10 Christmas morning they
the
let the
throughway
never closed.
Never closed.
They had to be open 24/7. You had to always be selling something.
Mm-hmm.
So she would work 6 to 10, and I remember we would just call her all morning. Are you coming home yet? Are you coming home yet? And then trying to convince like our dad or something. Can we just open our stockings? Like all just sitting there. So, and of course, any other day we wouldn't be awake until Mom got home. But it was Christmas, so she went to work at 6. We were probably calling her at 6:15. Are you coming home yet? Like just ready for her to come home for Christmas. But I remember that very vividly.
That was the one thing about the Thruway is there was no holidays.
Yep.
And then I went to Nedro, so I think I'm the only one of us that did work in a regular store.
Yeah, you did. You were only doing
which was I went from like one of the slowest stores to one of the busiest stores. And that was a whole culture shock, basically.
And then you worked in Tennessee.
And then I worked at a regular one in Tennessee that was pretty busy. But all of us, I say all of us. So Mom opened Warner's as the store manager. At one point, Dad worked with her.
Yep. My dad's parents, both my grandmother and grandfather, worked at that Warner's as maintenance folks at the plaza there.
Yeah.
So I remember
those big buildings. You had to have a separate maintenance team.
Mm-hmm. And I remember having to wait in the lobby because they worked for McDonald's when we lived with them when we were little, and we would have to wait in the lobby for. Was Mom getting off first? Was Grandma or Grandpa getting off first? Whatever sometimes. And we'd be waiting to go home with...
Or Mom would be closing and she would come in and we'd wait for Grandma and Grandpa to take us home.
Yep. Yeah, I remember...
Because Grandma and Grandpa, I think, always worked like 6 to 2 and 7 to 3. Like, they always worked in the morning.
Yeah, they worked in the morning. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But as a manager, you didn't really get to pick your schedule. So, I mean,
she did as a store manager.
Yeah, later...
She worked... They had to work, inventory where she worked later for monthly inventory and then
I actually do think that Grandma worked 2 to 10 for a while.
She might have.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure actually because I remember watching her getting her makeup on and everything.
I remember helping them wash trays.
Yeah, I do too.
Washing the brown trays that they used to have that you carry over.
Oh yeah.
And I remember the smell of dipping the rag in that pink
and the
sanitizer water.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Like, look, most kids got to go to their parents, to like their office jobs, and we're like scrubbing trays. But you know what? Like, I loved it. Like going and spending time with grandma and grandpa and doing stuff like that was fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And so we ended up, because we lived in Syracuse, so we ended up at the DeWitt three-way location. I started 2 months after my mom left. So she moved to DeWitt eventually. Opened Warner's. Eventually she moved to DeWitt. And she graduated from nursing school in June, and I started in August of that year. So she was gone by then. You tried to like find any other job than McDonald's. I feel like I remember that happening.
Yeah, I didn't want to work for McDonald's.
And then eventually,
because of my schedule, like sports, like volleyball and softball and stuff, I needed a job that was going to be super flexible. So like, because there was times like when I first started, I was only working like a day or two a week because I had sports. But then obviously, eventually, me and you both became managers there, shift managers and stuff. So like, eventually, I was working there full time. But to start, I was a teenager. 16.
I became that, and that was something. I became a manager there at 18.
I just like literally on my 18th birthday, I got promoted to a manager.
Yeah, so like that's pretty crazy. Is like you're an 18-year-old kid in charge of like these adults.
Yeah,
and honestly, it helps you. I always say that, like, I learned so much about management being a manager at McDonald's.
I did.
And especially being one so young, because I have to learn how to talk to people differently, because I'm trying to manage, somebody that's twice my age or older, and they were we had some great people.
I say all the time, I hated my job in food service, but I loved the people I worked with and that worked for me. I loved them all dearly.
There was obviously a few exceptions,
except for Brian. He really pissed me off.
There is a few exceptions. But I've always just like the McFamily you build around people is just so. I feel like it's like I miss people, loved people.
Yeah. And Brian, when did you start? Were you 16 when you started too? So 16 too.
Yeah, like I didn't even hesitate. I was like, because you were working there, you were the manager, and as soon as I turned 16, I was like, nah, Nicole, give me a job.
Yeah, I did.
So, and she did.
Yeah, dude, I got so many people jobs.
So did I.
Yeah, like we eventually, like there were some people there before us, and we became friends with them. But then after, we brought in like so many of like our old friends.
Like, the closing shift at McDonald's was made up by all of our friends.
Yeah,
because like
Sean, Zach, Alan.
The adults worked during the day.
Dad worked for me for a little bit, and I always say he was the best employee I've ever had, because he would like pull the grills out, and he'd like be deck brushing, and like he was.
Yep. He worked for me too, and Brian did too. But like Tara, our sister-in-law, worked that you guys met last week. If you watched the episode, she worked.
I never worked with Tara.
Tara, I didn't know she was brought in by like Zach, who I was friends with.
Who I hired.
You hired. He became like my best friend.
And he always made fun of it, because when I did his interview, I was like, "Oh, okay, I love minors." Because they're so easy to schedule, and they're just like so willing to like. They were like always had like the perfect schedule.
Not now.
Yeah,
Then they were very easy to schedule. They were flexible. They wanted to work.
Yeah.
They came to work on the weekends. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And, like it was just something where like we did.
And he was always like, yeah, like the first time I met you, you were like, I love minors, and I was like, that sounds great.
Yeah. I'm down,
baby. Yeah, I mean, we really ended up like that's how I really, aside from someone like Bella was a school friend of mine that worked at McDonald's with us, and like. So, like, her and then, like, Cassidy.
Her sister was there for a while.
Cassidy worked there with me for a while. And so we all worked there, and then just really kind of had this core group of friends that worked at McDonald's, and I hung out with a lot of those people outside of McDonald's that were my core group of friends for a long time.
And we weren't the only McFamily there. We worked with a family, the Shahadullah family.
Yeah.
Sazib, which is the older brother, well, not the oldest brother, was Razib.
Razib, I think, is the oldest.
But Sazib, Tanzita, their dad worked there, and I think at Nedro. And then Sazib's wife, and then Razib's wife, right?
I think she worked at Nedro.
No, she worked
with us.
Was it Nezrin? I know it began with an N. So it's kind of a thing, and some people out there might also like in your family have like all worked at like the same company. I'm sure that happens a lot.
I have an employee, like my employee right now. I'm not gonna say who it is because I don't want to. But I was in a meeting this past week, and he was talking about how his family has over 100 years of service between them in the company that we're in right now.
That's crazy.
Because him, his wife, his son, his father have all worked for that company in some capacity. So I thought it was so cool for him to say, we have over 100 years of service with this company. I'm like, that's so cool. I like to think about that. Like,
and you're at a bigger company. That's the same for my company. Is a little bit small. It's quite a bit smaller than yours, but smaller company. But there's so many people with the same last name.
Yeah.
Because they all work there.
It's real. Like, look, connections is a real thing.
Yeah.
So like, if I'm not saying you can't get somewhere without them, but. Yeah. Like Brian, you take the easy in, right? Like, hey, I'm a kid, I'm 16, my sister's got a job, she can hire me, I'm going right there, right? Yeah. Like, it was probably the same for me eventually. I'm like, damn it, I'm just gonna go to McDonald's. Hey, I probably didn't even fill in the application. I think I did, but like, I probably said, Nicole, we give me a dang job, Like,
so I went in for my interview with Joel Romevois, I loved him. He was the first manager I had. He was the store manager when I started.
He was there when I started, but briefly only.
And he sat down. I'm like dressed up, and I'm ready for this interview. It's my first interview ever. And he's like, "All right, fill out this paperwork."
That's what happened to me.
Ends up being my orientation.
Kudos to our mother, because she really, I know you're gonna get some people. I think, oh, it's just McDonald's, but like my mom really built a great reputation for herself within that.
She
company.
really did.
So like she was so well respected, and I've worked with so many people that worked with her. And, like, she was just such a respected manager. And I say all the time, like, I give my work ethic, I know came from my mother. Like, the way that I lead people and the way I want to lead people came from my mother. Because the same relationships that she made sure she had with her people is exactly what I try to emulate with mine. And it just goes to show, I bet you if I ran across some of those people today in New York, they would still know who Amy was. And
absolutely.
Talk very highly of her.
They always spoke very highly of her.
And they do in the nursing fields now where she is. But I'm talking about, she made an impact in those buildings she ran for McDonald's.
Yeah, and I would say it's definitely the difference between being a boss and being a leader.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
She was very in tune to her people and their needs and the needs of the company, and was able to take that and make it a management style that just worked very well.
So I can speak on that now, because obviously Beth and I work for the same company, and so you were at the store.
I was at the
that I'm currently at, and some of the associates that you worked with still work there and still speak very highly of you.
That's so so nice.
And it's not even just that. I went to another store yesterday, or was it yesterday? No, sorry, Friday. And the one that's close to your house. Okay. And one of the assistant managers there was asking me how you're doing. She's like, he was like, she stops in here from time to time, blah, 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 and everything, and all that stuff. So people across like the whole, network, right? They see my last name, and automatically I'm still Beth's little brother.
Yeah.
Waiting for the day when somebody goes up to Beth and is like, "Are you Brian's sister?" Like, that's the day I'm waiting for.
It's so funny. We all still have the same last name.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't always happen with siblings, especially when you have female siblings but we're all still Gilbert.
I know, and
my wife took my last name.
But it's like I said, I see that now, with you, because you and I worked in the same store. Mm-hmm. Normally they don't allow it. There was some weird.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, it was.
We did. At the same time.
We were
on a separate kind of part of the business.
Yeah, it was a weird circumstance. So we were able to do that. God forbid they ever let us do that, because
I'm just saying, you put the three of us in a store and we will run that shit.
Your best store ever.
Like, we would run that shit.
Like, I thought about that a lot when I was like in my role, like as an assistant manager. I usually had two other assistant managers. I'm like, man, if my sister and brother were here, like, you would be able to eat off the floor in this moment. Like, what? Number one in everything.
Not to toot our own horns,
like,
but we absolutely are.
Not to say, that we're like fantastic workers, but we're fantastic. Yeah. But no, like, I really feel like it's because the three of us, I feel like we really do have a level of commitment. Like, we really do take pride in our work, because I think we see, like, we've each seen a piece of, like, seeing bad leaders that you didn't want to emulate, and seeing what a good leader looks like, and knowing like, hey, that's what we want to do, and we want to be a good leader, and we want to make. And I think working under Mom's reputation made us realize very young that you do leave a mark. Like,
and
when
we
you
had
leave,
something to live up to.
about you. I mean, people may, like, I know I love the company I work for, but I know at the end of the day, if say they had to fire me for some reason, they will replace me tomorrow with someone else. And and that is up to them, and they can do that. And I know I am not irreplaceable, but I know that if there is a time I'm not there, there are going to be many others who do remember who I am, and they are going to remember the kind of leader that I was, and that's important to me. I don't want to walk away from something and people be like, "Oh man, but she's a piece of shit." Like I don't want that. Like I don't like you want to leave a decent mark no matter where you are. And not everyone thinks in that way, but I think in that way because I think of what we faced with Mom and knowing that we were kind of not in her shadow, but like kind of just following behind her. But yeah, I guess kind of in her shadow, but
because it made you want to live up to the expectation that she set. She set an expectation of how you should.
You didn't want to taint her reputation by saying, "Oh man, Amy was great for her kids." Oh, you know, like you didn't want to hear that. You know,
we're awesome.
God, Amy was fantastic. Her damn son wouldn't stop stealing nuggets out of the thing.
Yeah, and I would say that that's also a difference between being a boss and a leader is that you're not a good leader for your company. You are, but you're a good leader for your people.
Yeah,
because there's any job that we could not do alone.
Yeah, no, and look, and I had a conversation with Brian, I think when he was like looking at transitioning jobs, or maybe even now, like when looking at different roles, I can't remember when it was, but we talked about, I said, we're at the point in our lives where you can't just chase the dollar anymore. You have to look at the company that you're going to work for, because you need to look at their benefits. You need to look at what they have to offer, because like you're trying to build a career and for your future, right? So like, when I think about like McDonald's, I worked for that company. The company, I did not always agree with their way of business, right? Like I remember it was really hard to advocate for your people, like when they needed something, or like just the way that, for example, if we were over hours, we would cut full-timers back to 4 days. Like we would take, and that's, you know, that's their livelihood. Like they're counting on that paycheck, you know.
And that's also a difference between a corporate store and a franchise.
And that's where, like, for
we
me
were
now,
a franchise.
You know, working for a company that really puts their people first, and even something as simple as like, hey, as a full-time associate, I'm guaranteeing you that I'm going to schedule you 40 hours.
Yeah.
So they can count on that 40-hour paycheck, right?
Yeah.
To where, like, before it was like, oh, you're over hours, well, just shave this person, you know, they've got a big call-out track, so you just give them 4 days instead of 5, or they don't perform the best, so just cut them back to 4 or 3 days.
Right, because you're not guaranteed a full-time position or a part-time position.
Right, and so like that was really hard. Even being young, I knew that didn't feel right. Like I knew that wasn't probably the right thing to do. And so like little things like that, like really bugged, or the way that like, even with like holidays, or the way with like requests off, like we just never took into consideration in McDonald's, like work-life balance.
Yeah.
You know, like, so to be in a company now where like, you know, the guidance is like, hey, we're going to do everything we can to get the associate or the employee where they want to be when they want to be there. You know, we're flexible enough to do that. Mm-hmm. Like those are big differences that you don't get in every company. And so like, I try to explain to some, like, you know, we work with minors, or when I was in the stores, I worked with minors too, where I had to explain to them, like, look, like, I had those conversations about, like, you know, you get happy about something. I'm like, look, like, not everywhere is this lenient, you know? So, like, if we may offer this kind of scheduling flexibility or whatever, but you don't get that everywhere. And I will tell you, I would say 85%, at least 85% of the associates that left the company I work for now to try other things have come back.
Yeah.
Very, like, when I ran stores, when I was a store manager, I would not terminate them. Like we went through a period where we were putting them on a leave of absence because we knew they were going to more than likely come back. So I would wait 30 to 60 days to completely wipe them out of the system, because more than likely they come back.
That's one of the reasons I picked, honestly, the company that I'm in now. I was in banking for 8 years. Mm-hmm. And I saw them moving a little bit more towards corporate and a little less about their people. And I sat down and interviewed at this company, and I had an in, right? Tara and Cindy worked there, so, you know, I had that connection. And he told me a story about how during the recession, so this company is like 70 years old or something, and it's a little bit bigger than a small business, a little bit smaller than a big business, right?
I mean, it's a regional.
Yeah, regional business. So he told me that in 2008, he said when the recession hit, he's like, stuff was bad. And he said, we didn't want to lay anybody off. So every single person in management took a 10% pay cut. So they didn't have to lay anybody off. And the first thing I thought was, my company would never do that.
Yeah.
And right there, I was like, you know, they gave me everything I asked for, but right then and there, I was just like, this is where I want to be. Like,
yeah, I think everyone has that moment. Like, for me, I'll be like, so for me, when I started with the company I'm at now, I started there because I wanted to go back home to New York. Because when I moved to Tennessee, I got a job at a hotel, and it was the only job I've ever walked out of in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I got a job at a hotel to work the front desk.
I worked at Walmart for a month, and I just never went back.
Yeah,
it's the only time I've ever done that.
I never walked out except for this hotel. So, like, it was terrible. I felt so, like, just judged.
Well, first of all, you were discriminated against.
Yeah, so when I got hired on there, because, look, I don't dress femininely. I don't. I have short hair. I wear comfortable clothing. You know, I am a lesbian. You know, but, like, you know, with that, when I interviewed for this position, they had me come in, like, they told me what was required to wear for the job, but they had me come in and show them my attire. Which at the time, like, I was like, oh, okay, but like thinking back on it now, like, that was discriminating against me because, like, I have a masculine, normal dress, and they didn't think I was going to, like, look the way they wanted me to.
That jacket you bought for that, I just got rid of not long ago because I used to wear it to work. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you know, like, so that was like the first one, and then there was so much more when I was training there and stuff, just like people just not being, like, welcoming and nice and just real judgy. And, like, I was just like, I am not going to do this. Like, it just made me feel so, and I was already in a new place, right? I left a very liberal area for a very conservative one. Mm-hmm. And, like, so it was already a really uncomfortable transition, right? So when I left that job, I was like, I don't belong down here. These people are too small-minded. I can't do it. So anyway, I got this job with all intention of just saving enough money to move back home. So worked, and then I was dealing with an associate, and I didn't say anything to anyone. I was like keeping to myself, wasn't talking to anybody. And my best friend will tell you now that she made me be friends with her, and that's really exactly what happened. Because I wasn't talking to, like, anyone or opening out about anything. And my best friend I met, she doesn't work for the company anymore, but she works for the company, and she just, like, would not stop talking to me. And she would tell you, like, I knew I was going to make you my friend. And I was like, and that's literally what happened. Like, if you talk to her, she'll tell you, like, I made Beth my friend. And she really did. And she was the first friend I had down here, and will always be my friend because she extended me that kindness. And I love her to death. But, like, so anyway, I was going out to assist a customer, and one of the other employees there, who was a gay man, you know, and look, I do look like a stereotypical gay person, right? I get that. But anyway, he came out and he's like, so, did you move here with your boyfriend? And I was like, no. He's like, did you move here with your girlfriend? And I was like, well, she's coming in a couple weeks. You know, like so, you know, it was, and I felt safe because, you know, my people, right? Yeah. So, like, you know, we had the conversation. Anyway, so we're loading a customer later on down the line. It was after my ex-wife at the time moved down here, and or my ex-wife now moved down here, and we're loading up a customer, and this associate just makes a comment to me, hey, are you going to take your wife to there's some festival or something going on in downtown that weekend? And I said, you know, we talked about it, but I don't know if we're going to go or not. Are you taking your husband? And I said his name, and I went on here to be respectful. But he was like, yeah, we're going to go or whatever. And so we're loading bricks into this customer's car at the time. So the customer, you know, overhears this conversation as we're loading. And then so after we're done loading, like, we could tell the customer was just kind of like real snippy anyway. So anyway, we walk inside, you know, and we're walking down the front of the store, and I see this customer at the service desk, and she's yelling at my store manager at the time. And she's yelling at the store manager, and she's saying to him, I can't believe you let people like that work here. I'll never shop here again while you hire those people, talking about people of the LGBTQ community, right? And so I'm like, oh, shit. Here we go, right? I just left the hotel for this kind of stuff, and now I got this customer screaming at my store manager because of my lifestyle. We were just having...
After you just loaded their car for them because they couldn't do it their damn
After
self.
An innocent conversation about, you know, am I going to a festival
about your
weekend,
life.
right?
A conversation anybody could have had.
Right. So anyway, like,
stay on track.
me and the associate kind of like slink back, like what's gonna happen, like you know, right? And we're watching, and as this customer's yelling, I'm just watching the store manager. He's hitting buttons on the register, and I'm like, oh, what's going on, you know, whatever. And what he did was he refunded that entire customer's order and told that customer in a very professional way that we no longer want your business here. If that is, you know, how you're going to behave in the store, refunded that customer's entire order and sent them about their way. Never came to me or the other associate about that conversation. Watching that happen in that exact moment, I was like, if I am going to stay here, this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
And that was when I was like, I stopped looking for other employment and like stopped chasing the dollar. That's when I started having conversations about what this company can do for you if you work hard, which is amazing things.
Yeah.
I am very blessed. Brian and I are very blessed to work for a company that still recognizes hard work. You know, and so like that was the moment. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to tell that store manager that he's no longer with the company, unfortunately, but to have that conversation several years down the line of, hey, do you know what you did for me? Like, just because of that one action that you did, you changed my whole life. He did. Like that, in that one moment, he changed the entire course of my life. I don't have a college education, right? So there's no way I would have thought that I would be in the position that I'm where I've ran multi-million-dollar stores, right? For a company. I'm running a multi-million-dollar business for a company right now because of hard work, dedication. Yes, I've had training and everything since, but I would have never been able to do that had he not done that for me 13 years ago almost. Right. It's crazy the way that you can affect people.
And that's it. Leadership of your people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's also a reason, like that's one of the main reasons why I went back to the company, because I was on and off with the company. So I transferred stores when I left New York. So I think out of the three of us, I probably had the most jobs.
Probably.
Yes.
At least the most main jobs. I had a couple second jobs, like here and there every now and then. But.
So I was at McDonald's, and then, you know, left McDonald's, didn't work, yada, yada, whatever. Got fired.
I fired him twice. Yeah.
And then...
Not for any serious petty stuff.
But then when I moved back to New York, I went back to McDonald's because Tara was a manager. So I went back to McDonald's. And then while I was working at McDonald's, I also got a job at Best Buy. So I was working McDonald's and Best Buy. Best Buy was a seasonal position, you know, so I got let go at the end of the season. And then I was working at McDonald's and TGI Fridays. And then after that, I was working at McDonald's, TGI Fridays, and Applebee's for a little bit. And then I left McDonald's, and I was working TGI Fridays and Applebee's. And I went back to Applebee's, and then after Applebee's, I went to the company that you're working for.
Yeah.
Worked with them for about 6-8 months. That was the first job that I had ever been like truly fired from.
Yeah, we talked about that on one of the other podcasts.
And that's
hit you in the gut when it's a real job.
Yeah, that just rocked my whole world. So then I had to go back to TGI Fridays because my brother, Chris, my best friend, Chris was working there. You know, they weren't giving me hours, so I had to go back to Applebee's because they were giving me hours and everything. And then that's when, you know, after I got fired from the job that you're at currently, from that place.
Very different department.
Yeah, she's an accounting office type job.
Yeah.
I was in the warehouse.
Yeah.
So after I got fired from that job, right, Tara and I were like all gun ho on moving down to Tennessee. We were like, fuck New York. Fuck them. Whatever. We're getting out of here. Did you rub my lamp? We just watched that yesterday.
Did you bring me here?
Did you wake me up? You're getting your 3 wishes, so sit down. Anyways. And so then I was like, well, crap. So
we could rock some Disney karaoke. Sorry.
So anyways, I was like, well, crap, I need a guaranteed job when we move. I was like, I don't know what that I'm going to do. I was like, I can't transfer Applebee's. So I started working for the company that I'm at now. And I go in just as a part-time associate, right, and everything. And, you know, I keep it on, you know, the down low that I'm leaving until, like, a month or two before, And I'm like, hey, my wife and I are moving, or my fiance, after we get married. And so I put the transfer slips in, right? Good, solid job, everything. So I'm with them. I'm with that company between New York and Tennessee for 9 months, and then I go to Under Armour. Chasing the dollar. It was $1 more an hour, but they had all the.
He was still a baby. He was a baby. How old were you?
I was 23.
Yeah. So still a baby.
And they had like the discounts that were like.
They had the discount. I mean, the health insurance
we
is
all
what.
love that discount.
Oh yeah, they did have really good insurance.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, my God.
The premium they paid was fantastic for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. So they had great health insurance, right? The great benefits, and at first when I started, it seemed like a great company to work, right? I mean, they took care of their people, right? We celebrated stuff, everything, and then, right. I mean, right around like 2019.
I was gonna say right around COVID. I feel like it's
right around. Like
I think
just
a little bit
I
before
think COVID
COVID
was like the straw that
maybe.
broke the camel's back for Brian. Because
Yeah.
I think he was getting. I saw him getting a little burnt out pre-COVID.
yeah. So
2019.
about 2019, like there's never no such thing as a good burnout or being burnt out in a good way, but like we were working a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And so I mean 6 days a week. For months on end, which I mean, for a business, yes, is good. But then you kind of saw like management lean toward, we need to push numbers rather than taking care of the people. And I'm like, okay. And then COVID hit, and Under Armour took a huge hit. And COVID was honestly probably one of the better times there because they switched our schedule. We were only working 5 days a week,
Yeah.
8-hour shifts.
Yeah.
Because like we weren't shipping anything out, we were just putting stuff back in inventory, but whatever. And then kind of had a little revamp after COVID because I started working night shift. Right, that was another thing. I was working day shift when I first started, and it was like 4:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning.
He is not a morning person.
I'm not.
Most people are like, yes, early shift. That is not Brian. Brian is the one that is made for an evening shift, second shift.
Yeah, well, at least not 5 a.m. I'm not a 5 a.m. person. I can go into a shift at 6 o'clock. I'm good. 6, 7 o'clock, I'm good. Not 5, because that means I gotta get up at like 3:30. I'm not about that. But anyways, so I switched to night shift. Night shift starts going a lot better and everything. But then again, I mean, stuff just starts declining. And yeah, I was at that company for 6 years.
I didn't realize you were there for so long.
Yeah, I was there 6 years. And
you
so,
worked with my ex too.
I did.
And Dad was there
worked
for
there.
And
a while.
Dad was there for a while.
No, go ahead.
So during 2019, I start back at the company that I'm at now as a part-time job. I'm like, I need to make some extra money. I want to go on trips, vacations, yada yada.
And babies.
And babies. Yep.
Bubbles.
And Josie.
I had my oldest at the time, and so I go to the store that I'm at now. And
Oh, that's right. You didn't have Gia yet because she was
Gia's
a COVID baby.
And so I started there early 2019. I started back at the company early 2019, and
And you were doing both?
I was doing both. And so I'd basically go into Under Armour at 5 a.m., work from 5 to 3:30, and then drive back home and be at the other job by 5 o'clock and, close until 10. And then I'd get up and do it all over again. And so I did that for about a year. I left my second job just before COVID hit, like just before everything shut down. I left. And I was applying for other positions in this company, supervisor roles, because I wanted to leave Under Armour. I was like, screw this, I want to leave, because we were still working a lot. But I kept getting, don't have enough experience. Sorry, there's just somebody out there that's a little bit more experienced than you, all this stuff, right? Anyways, so after COVID, I started moving up at Under Armour. Get to a team lead, which is a supervisor, and then I make it into an office position, which was really a lot of fun. I got to see a lot of the financial behind the scenes, a lot of the logistics and stuff, and working on computers. I had my own little cubicle. I thoroughly enjoyed that job. Management was crap.
Yeah.
And I saw upper management's
Changes a whole lot.
true colors, because I had to sit in with them and talk with them, and I'm like, don't like
I don't
that.
like this.
Don't like that. Now, granted, there are managers at Under Armour that helped me so much and taught me so much. I still talk to them and I still reach out to them. And so then, I hear about this. Beth tells me about this position within the company that is kind of like almost like an entry-level management position. It's not like too high up there. She was like, but, it'd be a good step in for me. And so, this store that I'm at now is, had a position open. So I applied, got in there, and I tried my damnedest so much to like not mention Beth at all.
I want to do this on my own. I'm not going to be a Nepo baby.
Yeah, and like
not gonna name drop. Don't name drop.
No, I was doing so well until I got on a call with the district HR manager and the district manager at the time, and I was telling them that I still talk to, I was still connected with people that were working at the company. They're at different stores, and I was still talking to them and everything. And I name dropped them, and then eventually your name came out, and they're like, oh, Beth, oh, we love Beth, all this stuff, right? So, but now I've been with them for about a year and a half now, and those core values that this company has is the reason I came back. It's the reason I'm going to stay, and so it's.
And sometimes awesome. You can really like a company, but you have to be mindful of what you need, right, for your family and for the financially, monetary, and. Mm-hmm. So you may want to be somewhere, but can't.
Yeah, there's a lot of, as you get older, there's a lot of reasons you choose a job. It's not like when you're young and it's just, I need some money to go buy the new, Air Jordans that are coming out.
Yeah. Oh man, I mean.
You got to think about your family. You got to think about, your home. You got to be able, your life. You have to be able to support that. And you really need to be somewhere where you can have your peace. Like, because that was like even like for me now, even on like the worst days, I am not nearly as stressed and things like that like I have been in the past. And because I had a leader tell me a long time ago in the company I'm in now, she said to me, it costs you your peace, it costs you too much.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you're right.
I think, so I was working at a call center, and I think that's really, I always try to chase climbing a ladder. I always have. I still will. But I was working for a call center, and I just had a complete breakdown. Like it was the worst environment I've ever worked in. I would have panic attacks. I would sit in my car and grip my steering wheel. And that was where I was working when Adelaide told me I'm not as nice as I used to be. And I would grip my steering wheel, and I could not enter the building. I could not physically get out of my car and enter the building. And I ended up calling in 1 or 2 times a week with FMLA because I just couldn't. And then I just quit. I didn't have another job. I left. I got to my 3-year tenure for like my 401k, and I bounced.
Yeah.
And that was the point where I was like, where it really hit me that like there is not a job out there worth this, because I was making really more money than I have ever made and more money than I make now, and I was like, there's not a job that's worth this. And now I really push. My boyfriend always talks about he needs to make more money. I'm like, it's not worth your mental health.
Yeah, like here's the thing. Like when I was coming up in the company that I'm in now, like I did work really hard. I had a goal, and my goal was to reach at the time, it would have been the first tier of salary management. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I need to make that kind of money if I'm going to be able to support my family.
Yeah.
So I just like gas pedal to the floor, worked my tail off to try to get to that level.
Yeah.
And then I really didn't have a game plan after that. There was like that piece where I was like, I need to do this because financially I have to be able to support my family. So once I got there and I was able, because like I'm gonna be real, like you have to live, you have to make a certain amount of money. Money is not always not a concern. You have to make enough money to live. Mm-hmm. But once you make enough money to live, then it should become about what do I want to do? How can I be happy, right? So
yeah. And
every step I took after that role, it was because when I got to that role, I didn't want to be like, I never wanted to be a store manager at first. I was talked into being like wanting to be a store manager because I was like, I don't want to do, like, I'm fine where I am right now. I don't want to do that. Like, that looks like a lot of bullshit. Like, and I was like, no, I'm good. But then, like, as I learned what it was, and I learned, like, and I learned the role, and I was like, man, this does seem kind of cool. And I got into it because I was a grunt worker for the longest time, and I spent the majority. People know me in my role in my business now. They'll say I'm an operational leader. That is the I guess kind of the reputation that I have for myself now. But if you look at my career journey, I was a merchandiser up until salary management, and that's what my whole background was. I only had one operational role as an associate.
Yeah.
But once I got into salary management and they started putting me in these operational roles and stuff, that I fell in love with it. I'm good at it. I love it.
Yeah.
But before that, that's not what I was. And I didn't want anything. I want to be the person on the forklift and the person throwing the 100 bags of mulch and loading the 100 bales of pine. That's my happy place. And when I was a salary manager and when I was a store manager, my team knew when I needed a minute. If I was having a bad day, they knew I was probably unloading a truck somewhere or loading customers in the lot or doing all the physical grunt work, because that was my happy place. That's where I wanted to be.
Bro, you know how hard it is for me? Like, I've sat down and I've had a couple of conversations, like, with my store manager, and, like, we'll just talk about, like, my position and everything and what my position is. And he's like, your position is not to, like, do these things.
Yeah.
Like, when I task you with, like,
thing.
projects,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not asking you to do that. I'm like, dude, you know how hard that is?
Delegation, I feel like,
hardest.
has always been kind of an issue with me that I've learned to, like, to do, like, a little bit more over the last probably, like, 5-ish years. Really when I got into, like, the assistant manager position at the bank, because I was doing so much that I was like, I can't do it all.
Yeah.
So I started to try to delegate, and the problem is sometimes you're not always happy with the delegation. So
Well, that's the coaching on how you have to. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell this story, and I tell it all the time. It's about Brian's current store. When I went over there, and I'm like, mind you, I'll tell it in the story because I still say it to this day. So I went over to that store and I took a supervisor role in their lawn and garden department. So first of all, when I got there,
this is where you started.
yeah,
Sorry, garden department.
it's where I started. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's still to this day my favorite department. And it's lumber and garden are probably the two areas where you do the most physical work, and it's probably why I love them so much. But garden is still, to this day, would be my happy place. Anyway, so first of all, how I get to this store is the store manager that said, hey, we'll take her as a transfer, did not tell the supervisor that was currently over that department that I was coming in to replace them and that they were going to a different department. I stood in the hallway of the offices while
I remember
the
this.
store manager at the time tells the most liked department head in the whole store, mind you, at the time.
Most liked isn't always the most.
Well, tells him, hey, Beth is here. She's going to take over garden. You're going to move to lumber and building material. Will you show her the ropes? So he comes out, love him to death. He's no longer with the company either anymore, but then love him to death. So here I am. So I'm going over to this department, meeting these associates, and he's saying, hey, this is Beth, she's going to be your supervisor. They're moving me to lumber. Imagine how excited they were because they loved him to death that this stranger was coming in to take over the department from them. Already I'm in a hole, right? So I walk out to the garden. And
This is where the McDonald's experience really helps.
Yes.
Honestly.
So I walk out, and mind you, I came from probably the cleanest store in the district. I was damn good at my job, and my store was very well intact, the one I started at the time. It was like, they did all the walks there. It was like the store, right? Everybody was getting promoted out of there, right? So anyway, so I walk out to this center, and I'm like,
Toot toot.
what the is this?
Yeah.
Because, so they had all this, like, it was a mess, right?
Sometimes people are really well liked because they don't make you do anything.
And then the front was like, it was like a yard sale environment. Like, we had like clearance, like, well, at the time they were green tag, reduced tag, like reduced price stuff. And it was like a freaking yard sale of it up front on this janky rack and like pottery. Like, it was bad, right? So I had to, there was some stuff. I went to the store manager. I was like, can I work overnight for 2 weeks, please? And I did. I worked overnight for 2 weeks and I just cleaned. But anyway, so one of the things I needed to task them with, the team, is it was fall. So like fire pits, big thing, firewood, right? And I was like, I'm taking all this like freaking yard sale shit off the front vocal point of this center, right? So I'm like, here's what I want. There's racking over here. I said, I just walked them through. I said, let's get these fire pits put in the rack. Let's get it priced and neat. We'll put, the starter logs and kindling stuff. I told them, we'll put this here. We'll put displays of each on top of the racking here. Let's, get it set up for like a fall display. Perfect. Got it. Great. I come in the next day and one of my associates meets me in the break room and he's like, hey, we got this done. I'm like, perfect. He's like, yeah, it looks good. He's like, we can go out there and look at it. I was like, perfect, looks good. Or it's perfect, sounds good. So I walk out there with him and I look at this rack and all I can think of, I was like, am I being punked? Am I being punked? Because like they didn't sweep, there's leaves. So that store, like, it's like a tunnel of leaves. Like leaves just freaking engulf that store, right? So they didn't sweep out any of the leaves that were like stuck up under the rack. They've got all these like lean and crazy boxes. Like some of the price tags are the small ones, some are the big ones. So, like it was just like, it was bad. And I was like, but I had to stop. Like I had to stop. And I was like, what do I do? Like, what do you do in this moment? Because you don't want to tell them this looks like shit.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to be like, you don't want to just give them their first assignment and then say this looks terrible, right? So what I did, I was like, what the hell am I going to do? So what I did was I waited for that associate to go home. I fixed the fireplace area that night, swept it all out, made sure all the pricing was the same style. The boxes were nice and straight, squared and boxed out. Everything was to standard, right? And then I went into the power equipment aisle and I gutted like 3 bays. And I made them beautiful. Like front face flat, boxed out, tight, clean, overheads pushed to the front, like seeing all the SKUs, like I made them gorgeous, right? How they should be. Mm-hmm. So then the next day I brought the whole team over there and I said, hey guys, just want to walk you through what I mean when I talk about front face in a bay.
Right. What great looks like.
And I walked them through like, hey, you see how the price tags look the same size? It's, we use the same style tag for each one. We got clean, straight lines. We've got the overheads are mint, ready to go. And they never faltered from that ever again. But like I could have got on them and said like this looks like shit, and then I probably would have never got anything out of them again.
Yeah.
So I had to like really be strategic about like how do I affect this without like digging a bigger hole for me.
And that's one thing I've always tried to do, and this is something Mom said to me years ago, is do not ask your employees to do anything that you yourself are not willing to do. And so you went there and showed them that, one, this is your standard, two, that you put in the work to make it look like that, and it's what you expect of them if you can do it.
I was wrong to assume that they knew what my standard was going to be.
Yeah.
Right? Like they were just used to doing what they do, and I gave them direction thinking that they knew what I meant.
Yeah.
When in reality, they just didn't know what I meant. Like that was that team that I joined. When I met them, I was like, oh God. Because I had 2 fantastic. So this is what I walked into. So those of you who know, gardens, heavy lifting. So they're loading block, loading mulch, loading straw. Power equipment too. You're driving mowers in and out. You're moving heavy boxes of chemicals, Roundup and stuff like that. So I walk out to 2 associates that were probably maybe not quite the age of my grandparents, but pretty close, right? Mm-hmm. And then I had a couple other associates that were out there that were either older or just not your typical
slinging mulch
like to the eye, right? Like not the team that if you lined the whole building up on the wall, I was going to pick you out, right? My fault again for judging, right? Yeah. Never should judge. Because I say it to this day, I would take that team to any store, any garden center, anything, and run circles around any other garden department in the company and all of home improvement businesses in the world. Mm-hmm. Because they were fantastic. They worked their tail off. They never let anything slow them down. They worked together. So if they did have limitations, I never knew they did because they figured it out on their own. And they leaned on each other for help or what everything always got done. Everything was great. Like I remember one time went through a really hard time where the store manager I had was just not oh man, it was rough. I was having a hard time, but I learned a long time ago, leaders are temporary, right? So if you have a bad one, chances are they're not going to be there long, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
So, but in that time, like there was an issue where like we needed to like redo a bunch of stuff, and we are going to have to work overnights, and he went and asked the whole team, can you work overnight? And they all told him no. Because he didn't have a relationship with him, right? Like you're asking these people to flip their entire schedule, right? But then I went out there and I said, "This is what we need to do. Is anybody willing to come in with me and help me do this?" And I got like 3 people to work with me.
Yeah,
because they worked for me. They didn't want to work. They weren't going to work for the store manager. They came in for me. So what I do, I brought them fucking cookies and I like bought them pizza and I was like, "Yo," like because that's important. Like I don't like that. I
showing appreciation.
Yeah.
Is so important when you're in management.
I tell my leaders all the time. If they tell me that something didn't get done, I'm like, did you look in the mirror? Because when you have a good relationship with your team, anything that I say gets done.
Yep.
When I was an ASM, when I was a department supervisor, because I spent the first chunk of my roles just supporting my team and being the leader they needed me to be. And so if I ever asked for anything, it was done. So when I had like ASMs that would complain about they won't do this, they don't ever want to do this, I'm like, well, why don't you think they want to work for you? Because they don't need to want to work for me. They need to want to work for their immediate leader.
I would always, especially at the bank, every day I left, I'd say, "Bye guys, thank you."
Yeah.
And when I was a team lead and I went to this new store, one of the girls were like, "Hey, you always say thank you," and I'm like, because I appreciate you every single day. You helped me do what we did today, and. So, and I would do, little pop-ups, I'd go get them Sonic drinks, or I'd go get them ice cream, or I'd do something like that, and they'd be like, I obviously for free, and every time I'd be like, I'm doing this because I just appreciate you guys so much. I know I cannot open these doors without you.
But the thing is, we say that because we believe it.
Yeah,
and I tell my leaders all the time, you have to mean it. When I interview for leaders, I say all the time, I look for, for me, when I'm interviewing you, I am looking for very little knowledge. I say it's 85-15.
I can teach you how to do this job.
Exactly. 15% you know what the job is and you know the business. 85% are you a decent freaking human being?
Yeah.
That cares about your people.
Yep.
Because I can teach you whatever part of the business that I need you to understand and learn. But what I can't teach you is to care about your people.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think that is one thing that aggravated me the most, when I was going after those department supervisor positions, and they're like, "You don't have the experience," and that's what I kept getting. And I think that's why I got so aggravated.
He's probably listening to me say that, that the experience doesn't matter as much to me.
Because I understood, I'm in the role, the departments that I know the role. Because my thing is I want to learn everything. So
I'm like that too.
And that second
I want
stint,
you to be able to come to me and I can answer your question.
Yeah. So in that second stint that I had with this company while I was working as a second job at the store that I'm currently at, I went in as a lot associate / garden. Okay. And then from that, they were like, "Hey, can you cover this area?" Yes.
Yeah.
"Hey, can you cover this area?" Yes. Yep. "Hey, can you run a specialty department?" "No, but I will."
There was
I'll
only
figure
2
it out.
departments that I used to walk through and hold my breath, and I'd walk by them. I said, "Don't ask me questions. Plumbing and electrical."
Nope.
And then my store manager says, "Hey, I'm moving to electrical for a couple months because this person's out on all the way." And I was like, "Crap!" I had to learn electrical.
And so I went from just garden lot to where my week would be garden, lumber, electrical, plumbing, flooring, and aisle associate, appliances.
Paint. I know you did paint for a little bit.
Bruh, I was everywhere. And so when my associates now ask me, I would tell them, "Yeah, I was here at the store about 4 years ago. What did you work?" "Yes." Yeah. I mean, you name it. I think the only things I didn't do was cashiering.
I actually went into an interview one time. I was interviewing to work at Best Buy Mobile, and I had tried to get into retail and sales before, and all they saw was food, right? Because they just saw McDonald's on there. And so he sat me down, and I was like, "Look," I was like, "I know you see a lot of food service on my resume." I said, "I can do this." I said, "I will be great at this. I am telling you now, I can do this." And I got the job, and I was freaking fantastic at it.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I can, that makes me so well at my job now is, one, I'm big on people. So I love to celebrate people. I love to appreciate people. But my job, so as ASMs, right, you have different aspects of the business, right? You have specialty operations merchandising. My position covers everything.
Yeah.
I am so I have to know everything, a little bit about each department, which I already knew in this position because I had worked each and every single department, whether it was a couple days or what I could get.
Can you build a door?
Sure can.
I can't build a door.
Sure can.
I can build a door, but it's probably going to be wrong.
I can absolutely build. So we talked about this when we went over hobbies and stuff. I can be handy.
Can you build a kitchen?
Can I build a kitchen?
Kitchen design?
Okay, I'm not allowed to.
What kind?
Could
Do you
I?
know how?
I could do that. I play Sims.
Do you know the functions?
I mean, no, because they won't train me because.
Oh, they don't anymore. They don't let
Yeah.
you. There's a certain thing. Yeah.
I mean,
Used to you be able to figure that stuff out, but it looks like code. Whenever that's the one thing I used to have to rely on my COS for when someone had a kitchen problem. I'm like, can you read this for me? Because their order, what every item is, it's like freaking code, and I'd be like, what is this?
So
I
What
do
is that?
that.
Oh,
I deal
that's a
with
code
that
pick.
a
And I'm
lot.
like, what?
so
I deal with that a lot now. There's codes for each
so
thing.
I can build doors, windows. I can do flooring. Obviously, I mean, carpeting. Yeah, I can build all those quotes and everything in specialty departments. But it's so super useful just to have that little bits of knowledge, and so that's why I would think that I was almost kind of not assuring, but had a pretty good chance at a department supervisor, because you could put me anywhere.
Yeah.
Even if somebody had to yes, okay, yeah, I applied for the hardware supervisor. If you want to move somebody else in that department and put me somewhere else, you can. But I know plenty enough about hardware and tools, and
I love hardware.
and that was and this was before the combined departments. So now hardware is hardware, lumber, building materials, your overall three, but it doesn't. But it's probably because, in my store they're right next to each other.
I mean, it does kind of I was hardware and lumber just make sense, but when they put in millwork, it didn't make sense. Did they separate that back out?
Yes. But I know enough about tools and shit. I mean, I can pack down, I can delegate, I can do all these things. What more experience do you need with tools? Can I use a drill? You fucking know it. I don't.
What's so funny? You talk about how
Now,
handy you
yeah.
are. I feel like all of us kind of have a certain level of handiness because of Dad.
Yeah.
And I say all the time, I'm like, can I do it? Absolutely. Do I want to? Absolutely not. So we just had to pull all of our cabinets and drawers out and everything, and a drawer wouldn't go in, and Jeb was just trying to, and I'm like, let me see. And so one of the things was loose, and he's like, well, where do you got it? And so I just grabbed a screw and I screwed it in and I put it right in. And I'm like, isn't it great having a handy girl?
Yeah,
I can do it. Sometimes I don't want to.
I put everything up in your house.
Yeah.
I hung your TV.
Mm-hmm.
Still up there, so I did something right.
Yeah, he hung all my TVs, all my shelves. I hung my old shelves in my old apartment myself, but he came over to the new one and I had a lot more shelves.
I think
and he hung all those and my TVs.
All right, well, that basically wraps it up for this episode of Updownstate Podcast. If anybody has any questions about pertaining a leadership role, drop it in the comments. Beth will be more than happy to answer you.
Brian too. And Nicole, we've all had leadership roles.
And we've had different leadership roles too.
He might be newer at it, but Brian's a pretty damn good leader.
Yeah. His patience, man.
It's great.
It is great.
But yeah, if you have any questions like that, or if you have your own experiences, drop it in the comments.
Yeah,
and
let us know.
We'd love to hear about it.
Especially if you have any McFamily stories of your own, because I know McDonald's get a little crazy sometimes. It did for us.
Yeah. Until next time, make sure that you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel. You're following us on social media, on Instagram and Facebook at Updownstate PDcast. Turn the notifications on so you know when all these episodes come out. But until next time, guys, I'm Brian.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Beth.
And we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Peace out.